Hey. Get money all day, get money all night. Sip my drink, ho, let's get right. Getting paid, I'm getting paid. Roll one up, let's catch this flight.
This is boy Tight. Tuning in with Ray Ray's podcast. We kicking with boy Ray. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, we're back again. Another episode of Ray Ray's podcast. You know we always come live from the 10th floor of the beautiful Hello Studios, located in downtown Dallas. Make sure, real quick, you're clicking that button right below, like and subscribe, and following all things Ray Ray's podcast, and getting all those alerts when we drop new episodes and new things of that nature, all right? So, you know, all year we're celebrating the 5th year anniversary of Ray Ray's podcast. So we're bringing back some returning guests that we love and also bringing on some new amazing guests. So make sure you be watching us all year long. It's going to be a great year of episodes, all right? Before we get into today's episode, you know, we got to pay the bills, all right? Make sure you check out our friends out at Lit Vacations. You know, if you do any type of traveling, make sure you hit up the guys at Lit Vacations. They're going to get you taken care of. You know, whether you're trying to do a destination wedding, you're trying to do the homies kickback trip, you know, maybe a destination wedding, bachelor party, whatever it is you're trying to do, hit those guys up at Lit Vacations. As for my guy Austin, he's going to make sure you're taken care of and get you the best rates possible, all right? Cool. So when we start the show off, we like to always start off with positive words before we get into everything, all right? So just in case if no one told you today, just know that you are beautiful, you're loved, you're needed, you're alive for a reason, you're stronger than you think. Whatever it is you're going through right now, you're going to get through this. See, here on this show, Ray Ray's podcast, we are glad that you're alive, and most importantly, don't give up. It's always important to keep positive words in your mind because there are tough situations that arise every day, okay? Cool. So we started this new segment at the beginning of the year, and it's called Shout Out. There's some things we want you to check out. So today we want to shout out the new documentary. It's called The Real Iron Claw. Make sure you go stream that. It's on Max. It is on ID. We have some gentlemen here in the studio today. They're going to talk about that, but make sure you go check that out. So let's introduce these guys we have in the studio today. One of these guys you've seen here before. I'm still trying to get him to adopt me. We haven't got that figured out yet, but we're gonna make that happen at some point here. We have esteemed David Manning, a promoter, booker, referee from World Class Championship Wrestling, owner of Extreme Travel. Welcome, David Manning. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Ray, and I'm glad to be back, man. It was I got a lot of good response from the last time I was on here.
Yeah. So we get those adoption papers sent in, or what are we going to do? I mean, we got to make this official.
There's a hold up, something. I got to check a record or
we got to
something.
check a record or something, all right? Now I want you to help us introduce our other guest we have here today.
Well, he's become a phenomenal friend, almost like family. You got to remember with World Class, between Devon Erichs and who I'm going to introduce, Brian here with me, but we were all like family. We were like brothers. We traveled the road. A lot of times I saw them more than I saw my wife. And, he grew up with Kerry Von Erich literally from the first grade on, and he's become, like I say, a phenomenal friend. And I talked him into coming over here today with me. I want to introduce, most of you know him as Brian Adias. That was his wrestling name back in the day, but his real name is Brian Gower. Brian, thanks for coming with me.
Man, I want to thank Ray. Thank you, David, for that introduction. And Ray, I appreciate you getting me on here. I started checking out your podcast, and man, you've got a great following. You got a bunch of people. So
thank you.
You're not some little fly by night, and got a nice place here in high rise in downtown Dallas. So I'm honored to be here and be part of it.
Thank you. I appreciate the positive words. But let's go over some of your accolades. Some of the people that don't know: 2-time NWA heavyweight champion. What was your 6-man tag team champion with Kerry and Kevin? You tagged with Iceman Parsons, Buddy Rogers, right? Or I'm sorry, Buddy Rhodes, Playboy Buddy Rhodes.
Yep, we've been in Oregon. We were the Northwest, Pacific Northwest tag team champions. Iceman and I were the World Class champions. I was 6-man World Tag Team champions with Kevin and Kerry. And I was the 3-time Texas heavyweight champion here for World Class.
Okay. Did they approach you about being Lance Von Erich?
No, I was already a friend. That was them later, so they were running short on Von Erichs.
Been hard to pull that off.
All right, guys. Well, thank y'all for taking your time out to come be with us today. So let's get the people re-familiar with you, David, and Brian. Let's get the people familiar with you. All right. So, David, it's been a couple years since you've been on the show.
Yep.
Last time you came on, we talked about extreme travel. We talked about a bunch of different things. Then, since then, I know you did the talk with Kevin at the Majestic Theater, which is right next door. So, what else has been going on with you since the last time you've been on the show?
Well, it's business-wise, vacationing's bigger than ever, and we've got. I keep getting older every day, but I keep starting new businesses every day, and I always say, the day I retire is the day I start getting old. So life has been good. It's been blessed. I got a lot of stuff going on, and since I was here, the movie came out, The Iron Claw. And then we were approached by Discovery Channel, and basically through an interview with them, they were like, "Do you agree with the movie?" And I was like, "No."
Yeah.
As I said at the Majestic Theater here, I was not a fan of the movie because how do you do supposedly a true story, but you leave one of the brothers out?
Yep.
And you create Fritz to look like a monster when he was not, I give credit to a lot of my business success to Fritz Von Erich, learning from him as my mentor, not only in the wrestling business, but in the business world. And so it's been a heck of a 2 years. Seems like I was just here yesterday.
Man, I think it may have been longer than 2 years, actually. Maybe. I can't even remember. That's how fast it's going. But I know also since then, I think both of you gentlemen were on the Tale from the Territories, produced by Dwayne Johnson. Of course, you're on this documentary. I know, David, you've been on Dark Side. You've been on Dark Side a couple of times, haven't you?
I've been on Dark Side of the Ring. I think the only person that's been on Dark Side more than me is Jim Cornette, and that's because he's kind of working with the broadcasters. But I've been on, I think, 5 episodes. Maybe 6. The only season I wasn't in was number 3.
Okay. So, that tells you how much you've been tied into, this industry. You've worked with a lot of prominent people. And, like I said, you were a booker. So, Brian earlier, he was giving you your praise earlier before you walked in. They said a lot of the big ideas came from you. So, congratulations on that. You deserve your flowers on that because, some of the big moments probably wouldn't have happened without you. So that's pretty awesome.
Well, and the sad part is very few people know that.
Yeah.
Most people know me from being a referee.
Yeah.
They really don't understand that only if you were there like Brian, and he knows because he was there from the beginning, and he was also like a family member with, the Von Erich, especially Kerry. And so he got to see the day-to-days, and Fritz, hey, thank God, boy, he put a lot of responsibility on me, and you better do it right, or you're going to answer to Fritz.
Yeah. Now, remember the last time you were on the show, you were talking about how you were a wrestling coach, and you showed Kerry some moves. Brian was there as well, wasn't he?
I wasn't there at that particular one, but Fritz had taken Kerry to right up the street in Denton, Texas, and they had a little wrestling meet, and David was coaching some youngsters there, elementary and junior high kids in high school, and one of David's pupils had wrestled Kerry there to Denton Civic Center, and of course he just wiped Kerry out because Kerry didn't really have any coaching. And after the match, David pulled Kerry aside and showed him, what he was doing wrong and how he got beat by David's guy. And Fritz saw that. Fritz was there and left a message with the concession or somebody, his phone number for David to call him. And so he called and he says, Jack Atkinson wants you to call. And he said, who's Jack Atkinson? He said, Fritz Von Erich. So that's how Fritz and David met. And then it just went from there. Like I said, people didn't realize David came in the office. Fritz had him come up there the very first booking meeting, and David stepped up. Here's a new guy. He said, what do you think of that idea? And everybody else loved it, and David said, I don't like it. And Fritz said, well, you're fired, but what did you not like about it? So David tells his side, and from that point on, Fritz said, I want you at the booking meetings from here on out. And I'm gonna. He didn't like. I don't know if he likes to talk about it, but people don't realize the all the things that David did behind the scenes, the ideas, the storylines. 99% of them come from him. That other people might have tweaked them a little bit, and Fritz, but David has a mind for that business and business in general. You know, he learned a lot from Fritz in the wrestling business, and like he said, business. But you know, a lot of people say, "Oh, everything that guy touches turns to gold." That's not true. You have to have the mind and the know-how to make something become. And he's a master at it, man. He's got extreme travel, 30,000 travel agents, and he's got me going got me booked to go, me and my wife, to the next travel deal. So I can't wait to get going on that. But besides being a phenomenal guy, just business-wise, he's got a brain for business. Big time.
Awesome. That's awesome. That is awesome.
Yep.
So let's talk about something real quick.
Ain't gonna let me pay, Brian.
You can get me after the segment here.
So let's talk about something real quick. Then, Brian, I really want to kind of talk about your career before we get to everything else.
Sure.
So I know they started doing a lot of the documentaries about World Class. One of the first documentaries I remember was one the WWE produced. I think it was like the tragedy of World Class. I don't think you were you? They didn't interview for that, David, did they?
No.
Okay. So when did some of these people started reaching out to either of you guys to start doing these documentaries? Because there's been a lot of documentaries and, you know, Dark Side of the Ring, different things. When did people really start reaching out to you for your opinion, you know, of how everything happened and things?
I'm going to say I always get myself in trouble every time I'm on a podcast because I tell the truth. And anything the WWE put out about World Class, it wasn't to make us look good. You know, hey, hats off, congratulations on what WWE achieved. Okay, created billionaires, but we started it all. We started slow motion, music to the ring, syndication, instant replay. You know, in the movie that they just did about the Real Iron Claw, they kept talking about why would Fritz have the boys wrestle the next night? Why would Fritz? And you know, I was there. We had to make that decision, and the biggest reason was every Wednesday, believe it or not, I was at. And you hated to give stuff away because if they didn't do it, I had to answer to Fritz. But we syndicated our show into over 40 states, WCCW, World Class Championship Wrestling. And I would literally send them by Greyhound. That way we knew they got there. And so I would bring all these tapes on Wednesday, and my car would be loaded down, and we would take them and they would transport them to all the different stations. And they were usually a week behind what was really happening here.
Yeah.
So you got to understand, they're a week behind. We can't not have a tape to go out.
Yeah.
And we had to keep the storyline going. Because a storyline, a lot of people may think wrestling is week to week. No.
It's long.
We have the story planned out for 6 months. And about 3 months into that story, we're creating a new one coming so that when that one blows off, we call it, when it has the blow off, we got another one created, and here it comes, and then there's another one created. And it's just an ongoing cycle like that. And you can't, right in the middle of it, just stop and take a break. Or it messes up everything.
Yeah, and we didn't have pre-recorded things that you could, what was called in the can. You couldn't pull something out and put it in the middle of the storyline because it would just throw people off. And plus, we didn't even have any because it was just beginning. So you had to. That's people say, oh, why did Fritz push them into doing, getting right back in the ring? It was. You had an obligation, to do it. So
it's like no choice.
It was a business.
It was not. Yeah, it was not an option.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say, even with myself, people saw a lot of my kids were like, "Why were you so teared up when they interviewed you?" Well, you know, behind the scenes, a lot of times you'll talk, and that doesn't make the air.
Yeah.
They had just done a real emotional segment with me about how did it affect me, and I never really thought back of how it affected me. I tell the story all the time, And when I started thinking about how it affected me, seeing Fritz, the look on his face when I told him David was dead, listening to Doris say, it was a mistake, right? It was a mistake. And I had to say, no, he's dead. And I started thinking about it. So, yeah, it got me emotional. And then right there, they went right into the story of me driving and telling Fritz. And so I was just coming off one emotional high to the next one. And
Well, it just hit you.
it hit me because...
Yeah, it's real.
And because we were in the ring, it helped us all get through it. I mean, what otherwise we just go home and grieve for a week or 2 weeks or whatever it took. And I think, and I think it helped the brothers that their mind was off the death and on
And not just
business.
dwelling on it. And you had to, when you have to go work, it gets your mind off for a little bit anyway. So, I mean, I was sitting there when David was doing that on the Discovery ID, the Hollywood Demons, and I looked over at my wife, and my wife had tears running down her face, you know, from what David, because it was so real, and I think it hit him all of a sudden. It's like he remembers how he felt and all that. You know, when you're telling somebody something, you have to stay strong. Then as he's looking back and reminiscing, all of a sudden it got real, what really happened, and he you know, you get emotional. So, and that just shows a side of you that, you know, it surprised you.
Yeah, and I give Kevin credit because he was the oldest brother at that time, and he had to stay strong for the other brothers.
Yeah.
And I know Kevin had his moments of the tears and the stuff and like that, but he didn't do it around anyone else, and he didn't do it around any of the other brothers. He just kept telling them, we got to be strong.
Does it ever get easier telling these stories?
No. I told one of my daughters said, oh, that was a great, Dad. She said, but God, you should have told me I needed a box of Kleenex to watch it. And it's a story that a lot of people, if you took people that didn't know the Von Erich story, and you say, if you were to say, so what family do you think went through the most? Most people would say the Kennedys. Okay, you got a president assassinated, you got one running for president assassinated. Then you look at all the other trauma that went through the family. That's nothing. To what we went through here.
5 out of 6 kids. Could you imagine? You know, I couldn't imagine losing one of my children, but could you imagine Jack and Doris? They lost 5 out of 6 children. They buried. You know, that's just...
You're not supposed to bury your kids.
That's just crazy.
Your kids bury you.
Yeah.
So, Brian, let's dive into your career for a little bit. Let's talk about you getting into the business. And I know you retired in 2000 officially, right?
93, really. So I came back and wrestled a little bit, but officially I was more or less out of it by 93. But I guess for people that don't know, Carrie and I started first grade together at a little town called Lake Dallas, north of Dallas. And we were great friends growing up and all the way through seniors in high school and through shot put and discus. And Carrie was number 1 in the nation senior year in the discus, and we placed first and second at the state track meet in the discus, and then I placed third in the shot put. But then he went to University of Houston, and then I went to UTA and went on to win the conference 4 times in a row. But a lot of people don't know that I was friends with Carrie and basically the brothers and Fritz before I even knew what wrestling was. So that's kind of made it different, you know, because I was friends with him before I even knew what it was. But then Carrie, once he got out of University of Houston, he was on me every time I would say, man, you got to come wrestle. You got to come wrestle. It's making us great money and the girls and all this stuff. And I actually waited. I wrestled in between my sophomore and junior year and my junior and senior year in college, because in the NCAA I couldn't wrestle when I was enrolled in school because it was you know, you couldn't do that then. It was against the law. So I started full time in 1982 and wrestled till 93. Went all over the world, and man, looking back, what a ride, you know. What other job could you have where you got paid to travel the world? Yep. You know, and it was Virgin Islands, Japan, Israel, and all Kuwait. I was there before the war started, and it was just a really cool way to make a living. It was rough. You're traveling, it was grueling, really, to say the least. But you're young and you're in for it, So I wouldn't trade it for nothing. So
let me ask Brian a question. How many surgeries since wrestling ended?
No, man, I've had since 2017. I've had 5 surgeries. So. Yeah, it's been rough, but putting me back together. You hit the ground 10,000 times in your lifetime, and it takes a toll on you when you start getting older. But I'm in good shape now. And got everything put back together with titanium.
Okay. The bionic man over
Yes,
here.
I got to tell everybody I got more titanium in me than a SR-71 Blackbird.
So let's talk about the movie that came out. The Iron Claw with Zac Efron and those guys. Let's talk about your opinions. I know you probably have done other interviews, talking about that. So I want to get some of your opinions. Who do you think, from the actors that looked the most like the person they were portraying? I think the guy that played Fritz, I think he looked pretty close to Fritz. I think the guy that played, what's my guy, Bruiser Brody, he looked very close to Bruiser Brody.
I'd agree with that. The obviously the guy that played Kerry, great actor, but did not look the part.
No, not at all.
When you looked at the boys around the table, the way they did it, Kerry was by far the biggest when he was in his prime, and Kevin would be second. Mike, for an average person, Mike was 6 foot, 6'1", but not big. And then Chris was never big, but in the movie, it shows. And the guy they had play Ric Flair was definitely not. No.
I think the guy that played Dave actually looked. Remember that number, that jersey Dave wore, like 87. That kid actually looked like David a little bit, but I think Fritz, the guy that played Fritz, did. But let's back up a little bit on that movie. How do you make a movie? They didn't even talk to Kevin until the movie was completely done. How do you, when Hollywood says inspired by a true story, they got their spin on it. It might have been inspired from it, but it was nothing like. They made Fritz out to look like a monster.
They didn't talk to anyone that lived it.
Yeah, nobody. And it was, I was mad when I first saw it. But they made Kevin's wife Pam look like a little tramp, like she was waiting to get with him out in the parking lot. And then Fritz loved those boys more. David can tell you. I mean, he lived for those boys, and everything he did, he was thinking about them. And the love all those guys had behind the scenes, the way they would hug and tell each other they love each other, it was amazing. But that really burned me up because it was misrepresented. And people ask me, I said it's Hollywood. Hollywood threw their spin on it, and that's what Hollywood does.
Because in the movie, they made it seem like Fritz didn't want Kevin to be world champion, or like he blew his opportunity in the Ric Flair match and things. I'm like, this is just kind of odd for y'all to do that.
Well, they created the movie as if they tried to tell it like it was a real.
Yeah.
Okay, that we didn't have any control. We knew exactly when the champion was coming.
Yeah.
Every time he was coming, months ahead of time, because we had to start creating the story of who was going to go against the champion.
Yeah.
Okay? A lot of people, they got to understand the Von Erichs are pretty much around the world were baby faces, good guys. It's hard to have your world champion be a good guy, because when he comes to town, if he's got to fight the bad guy, since he's a good guy, the fans don't want the bad guy to win.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so you're better off if the world champion is a good talker and a good heel. That's why Ric Flair was one of the best. Was he the toughest? No. Probably the toughest ever was Lou Thez. Okay? And then Harley Race was bad boy. I've been out on the town with him many times at night that got rowdy. But the thing is, in the movie, and I was at the after party with Zach, and I told Zach I thought he did a great job they did a great job with the script they had. But when I talked to the producer that created the movie, his first question to me was, "Okay, Dave, what'd you think?" And I said, "My son liked it." And I said, "But I lived it." And I said, it was hard. I said, "It was hard for me to sit through it, knowing all the things that were wrong with it."
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, I know you're talking about Chris, and we just didn't have time to cover another one." I said, "But it's a brother.
It's a brother, yeah.
And you're telling the story." And then I said, "Well, that's not the only thing." I said, "You guys made Fritz look like a villain when he didn't even want the boys to wrestle."
Yeah.
People don't believe that. He was adamant that Kerry finished school at Houston before he got in the ring.
Sure was.
He was adamant about it. But it's like Kevin just said on the show. If he were to tell his boys right now they couldn't wrestle, they gonna listen to him? No. Matter of fact, Kerry told Fritz, either you let me in the business here or I'll go somewhere else and wrestle.
And I'll break in somewhere else.
So what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
He was wanting to be in the 80 Olympics. That's why he went to University of Houston, because the coach there, Tom Tellez, was an Olympic coach. So Kerry was in 1979. He threw the farthest of any freshman in college and was working toward the 1980 Olympics. Then they boycotted the Olympics.
Yeah.
So nobody from the United States went to the 80 Olympics because of world at war, basically, or Cold War. So
if Kerry would have went to somewhere else to break into the business, in those times, would that have been frowned upon from the promoter who would have put Kerry into business without kind of getting the blessing? Because I asked that question because earlier this year I interviewed Tessa Blanchard, Tully's daughter, and where she was training, they didn't know she was training at first, and the trainer was like, "Look, you need to tell your people, like your dad, because that could be bad for us. That we don't, they don't know that we're training you, because her stepdad was a Magnum TA, and Tully, her dad, none of them knew. So she finally had to reach out to him like, "Hey, I've gotten into wrestling," and
I don't know. I don't know if another promoter
they would have done it, because you got to remember,
respect for Fritz.
When I broke into the business, when I got into the business, Fritz was the president of the National Wrestling Alliance, the NWA, and so whether it be in Kansas City, Bob Geigel, whether it be California, Mike LaBelle, whether it be whoever, they would have picked up the phone and called Fritz and said, "Hey, Kerry's calling us." Mm-hmm. But Fritz knew that wasn't going to happen. Yeah. Fritz wouldn't let that happen. Yeah. And the other thing is, now, let's move to the business side. Fritz wouldn't have wanted the boys to go anywhere else and break in, because he's the promoter here. Yeah. So we can build the story like we want it built around them. And other promoters didn't understand. Those boys grew up with people. I mean, it was like everybody at home, this was my kid. And so when you look at that and you put it all together, the story wouldn't have been the same if he'd have broken anywhere else. And his brothers were here. So
it just didn't fit.
It didn't fit. But, hey, Kerry came, like I say, when I was coaching Kerry, it was for amateur wrestling. And then by the time he broke into the business, I was already helping train. I trained, I was kind of proud that Jim Duggan came out and said that I was one of the ones that trained him.
That's awesome.
Because for 6 months, I worked with Jim Duggan when he was down here. And so Kerry picked it up. He was a natural athlete, and he picked it up really, really quick. And he, like they just said on the movie, he had the Brad Pitt face and the Arnold Schwarzenegger body. So
yeah, he was over, man. When Flair came to town, when David passed away and Kerry went to world, that sealed Kerry as it here. He was over more than anyone. So
well, in the movie they did the coin toss. Supposedly Fritz did.
Yeah. Who gets
Kevin didn't want to be the champion. Being the world champion is not a fun job.
Yeah. No.
You're in a different town 360 days a year, wrestling every night, and usually it's 1 hour.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're going to wrestle their babyface.
Yeah, so you're wrestling their babyface, so they don't want you to beat them up.
Yeah.
And so it's usually a 1 hour draw, or it's a disqualification.
7 nights a week. Sometimes 8, because I know when he was in North Carolina, wrestle in Savannah, Georgia at 2 o'clock on Sunday, and then come to Charlotte that night.
Yeah.
I saw him do hour with Steamboat at 2 o'clock in Georgia, and then come to Charlotte and do an hour time limit. They wrestled 2 hours in about an 8-hour span.
He and Terry Funk did an hour Broadway, and so they changed the rules and said, "Well, we'll fix that. It's 2 hours next time." They did a 2-hour Broadway.
Oh my gosh,
Man,
what a grueling, man.
Oh,
God, I couldn't even imagine it. So
because you got to make both people look strong. You can't have one look.
you got to tell the story.
You got to tell a story. You have like, okay, this guy coming in this territory, beating our top guy. Everyone has to somehow look good in a situation.
The job of the world champion is to make the other guy look like he's better. So you get your heat at the right time, and you got to let them shine, and then you got to
Look like
somewhere along the road you screw them.
looked like the champion got away with the skin of his teeth, so barely had to cheat to get out of it, so.
And the coin toss came. The belt was going to switch here. People don't know that the belt was going to switch to David Von Erich, and David would have been a great champion because Dave, of all the brothers, he could wrestle heel.
Yeah.
In Florida, he did.
I saw him on the Florida tape. He was perfect. All his stuff was right on the money as a heel. Dave was
like
really,
Fritz.
Yeah.
And he was a good worker.
Yeah.
So Dave could have carried the belt and probably kept the belt for a while. But if you look back, every guy that held the belt was a heel. That held it for any time length. Like Dusty Rhodes won it. He didn't keep it long.
Yeah.
And you talk about today, before we started the tape, you said, how do I feel that Ric Flair's no longer won the world title the most? The wrestling has changed.
Yeah.
I mean, there was times the world champion would hold the belt for 2 or 3 years before he lost it. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it happened periodically, and then it was like, the more you switch the belt, the less value the belt has.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's a fact. So, so Dave would have been the world champion, and then probably at some point Kerry would have won it because he was so over.
But I think also too, like in the business, there's money when the hot baby face is chasing after the title.
Always. That's why
people want to see him win. Yeah.
That's why they always want the heel to have the belts.
Yeah.
The babyface chased him. Well, look at if Kerry would have been world champion, going to the different territories and working against their babyface, Kerry wouldn't have worked heel.
Yeah.
Because he's a baby. Everybody.
Well, and they wouldn't have bought him working heel.
No.
The other thing is, you want to know who I think could have been the best world champion?
Who?
Fritz Von Erich.
Yeah.
Because he was hated all over the world. Even when the boys were top babyface, when they would go into certain arenas, if Fritz was with them, they'd boo him.
Oh yeah.
They hated him so. He was a Nazi to them.
Right after World War II, that was the perfect time too. And he was one of the best heels that ever worked, and could talk. You know what I mean? Fritz could talk.
He could talk, and he had that deep, and he was in the ring.
Believable.
He was believable because he'd beat the crap out of you.
Yeah.
And people laugh, but everybody used to say when you knew who wrestled Fritz because they were sitting in the dressing room with 18 lace marks across their chest where he had kicked them with his boot.
He would.
But in the movie, they talk about Fritz and I forgot what I was going to say now, but it was Fritz was he was bad.
Well, that's when he came here and took over the promotion. He had to start switching to be a baby face because, the people here, they wanted a baby face. So, and I tell you what, he got over as a baby face more than anybody that you could believe either. And that's when they would bring heels in to work. Did the exact opposite. They would bring heels in to work with Fritz and do a program, and then they'd head out, and the next heel came in, and so it worked out perfect.
And it was crazy. I never smartened up my family. For real, you just didn't do it.
No.
Yeah.
And so my dad, it was actually handling a lot of the souvenirs and stuff. My dad and mom would drive around, and I had some guys working for him selling them. But when Bruiser Brody came in as a heel, and he was so believable, and he was just so solid that I'll never forget. I was having dinner at my dad's, and my dad looked at me and he goes, "I don't think Fritz can beat Brody." I said, "What?" He goes, I know it's going to come down to Fritz against Brody. And he said, that may be a man Fritz don't want to bite off.
He was that man. He was huge when he got here. He was 6'8" and weighed 320, and could jump.
Solid as a rock.
Yeah, he was unbelievable when he was younger.
Well, the Undertaker tells the story. You know, when he first broke in here, he had a match against Brody. Undertaker's 6'9".
Yeah.
And he said that we called it a potato back then. If you accidentally hit too hard, or if you laid, well, he potatoed Brody. And he said, I thought, hey, look, I'm standing toe to toe with this guy. And he said, next thing I know, a boot hits me in the side of the head.
And he's 6'9".
He's 6'9".
That's called
Brody gave him an adjustment.
That's called a receipt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, if you were able to, compare World Class to different, territories and promotions, you guys had a lot of people come through there. A lot of big time people that got their start in World Class. If you had to compare it to any other different promotions and, different states and stuff like that, how would you compare it?
Well, there was no comparison at one time when we were in our prime. Eventually, we became like a farm team in baseball, sending all the stars to WWE and WCW. I would say the closest to us was WCW.
Yeah.
Had the same mentality, NWA. And matter of fact, when we broke away, a lot of the guys that we still communicate with were, the NWA. Yeah. Vince was always kind of had his own thing going, Vince Sr. And Vince Jr. just took it to a whole new level.
Yeah. Because you got to think, some of the biggest stars, ever in the industry, Stone Cold Steve Austin started out in World Class.
Rick Rude came through here. Undertaker.
King Kong Bundy.
Was it JBL Bundy came through here from a little bit? Yeah.
So many people, like he said, it's like a farm team. And then the next step was WWE, and all those guys that came through here were major stars up there.
Was it Dingo Warrior? He was here.
Ultimate Warrior. He went there. See, Vince was, here's where Vince was really brilliant. If he didn't own the name, he'd change your name.
Yeah. That's why nobody used their name from here. Yeah. Basically.
That's why the Warrior, became Ultimate Warrior.
Yeah.
Because by owning your name, he owned all the memorabilia.
Yep.
And he'd just give you a piece of it.
Yeah.
And even, I don't know it for sure because I haven't seen any contracts, but when guys left and got a movie break, they owed Vince.
Yeah.
If they used that name, you notice it quickly moved to Dwayne Johnson.
Yeah.
Yep. That's exactly right. So.
All right. So let's take it off Hollywood. Let's speak about Hollywood Demons. All right. So let's talk about the process of filming this. When did y'all start doing this, and what are your thoughts on it?
That was filmed in April of 2024. It was a year since we filmed it and then it's shown. But when they came to me, they got a hold of me and they got a hold of David basically at the same time, and they said we're wanting to do something different. The dark side's already been done and all the negative stuff. We want to hear about the Von Erichs before they started wrestling as teenagers and kids growing up. We want to hear about all that, and then move to the wrestling part. I think that was what was so different about that.
Yeah, and it was really weird when they first called us. They were doing a series on the stress of being like a rock star every day, and living in the limelight every day. And could we be part of the shows and relate that? Because we talk about the Von Erichs. World Class was so hot. Brian will tell you, when we were in Israel, I tell everybody, here I'm a referee in the mind of everybody, but for a week I lived like Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't go anywhere. You couldn't do anything without thousands and thousands of people
showing up.
Tell
them about the people at the airport when the first time came over there.
Yeah, and I wasn't on the first trip. It was even worse on the first trip. But when we landed at the airport in Israel for the second tour, there was close to between 30 and 40,000 people lined up on the tarmac and the fence.
30 to 40,000
people to see us land.
Lined up. So the president of Israel went on and said, next time we come in, we don't want the people knowing when they're coming in. Nobody went to work. That day, the whole Tel
It's camped out.
Aviv, the whole Tel Aviv, Israel, shut down when they literally.
Well, and they would make statements. A great statement was Perez. It's ironic because now Perez is the head again, but back then it was his dad.
Yeah.
They literally came and said the Von Erichs can't make any more appearances. People are not going to work. I mean, we went into a park, and they were saying, there'll be about 500 people there. There was 15,000, and we were on a little stage that they were doing puppet shows from, and all of a sudden they started rolling in, and it would be like our SWAT team coming in. They came in and literally got us and moved us, me, Carrie, and Sunshine. And I'm trying to hold Sunshine close to me because they're just trying to reach and tear and everything you can think of. It was scary. Mm-hmm. And they took us underground in these giant pipes, like sewer pipes. And but they weren't sewer pipes, but it's their protection. And they took us in and took us back over. It was incredible. And
they're like gods over there, man. Just like come in and you were just
bodyguards. Everybody had 3 and 4 bodyguards.
Man, seems like a fun but a scary experience at the same time.
Well, I'll tell you a story. So we're there, and a nobody at that time. That they were one of the first 2 matches. Jeff Rates and Steve Casey are out walking one night. There's a car wreck, and the way the car wrecked, the door had literally come off its hinges, so when, I can't remember if it was Jeff or Steve, they go rushing over there to help them. Well, when they grabbed the door and pulled it, it just came off. But in the media, wrestler shows brute strength and rips the door off, rips the door off
somebody.
and saved their life, and it went everywhere.
That would have got you over to business if you pushed that story.
Well, when I was there, the last time I was there, Stallone was making Rambo 3 or 4, and he was staying at the hotel next to me. And so Brody was late getting in. We didn't know if he was going to get there coming from. And Stallone was a huge fan, used to come to the matches all the time in Houston. And so I told my producer, Gil, I said, I'm going to go next door and see if Stallone will make an appearance in the match tonight and replace Brody. And so we went next door. Now, you got to realize he's a gigantic superstar there, too.
Yeah.
So everybody was like, Stallone. And when he came by, I knew the only way to get him, I just yelled, Sly. And he stopped for a second, turned around, and motioned for us to come in. And Abdullah had already said he can knock me out. And so we had it all planned out. He was a little upset that Brody showed up. Brody made it in, but he was, there's another guy. He's a great guy and was such a big fan. Matter of fact, Terry Funk helped him with his finishes for Rocky.
Really?
Terry Funk helped the double knockout and the count. And, yeah, that came from Funk.
Man, I liked Funk in, was it Roadhouse?
Yeah, Roadhouse. Well, that's why I see Stallone, they became good friends.
Yeah.
And so when Sly got the breaks, he would use some of the boys, give him a little screen.
Well, they made another
action.
movie before that. Remember when he was like, it was like Old Town New York or something? What was that movie?
Oh, yeah.
Terry Funk played the heel in that. I forget what his name.
The heel in that, and then they did the arm wrestling thing.
Yeah, I remember that movie, yeah.
Over the top.
Yeah.
So, what has been the reception so far from the Hollywood Demons, the real Iron Claw story so far?
My kids said they liked it better than the actual movie.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why you like it is, I have to admit, it's 2 hours of sad.
Yeah.
But it's the real story, and you're getting the real story from the people that lived it.
Yeah.
That's the biggest key. It's not like he said, she said.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of disagreement. I have to say, they had Dr. Drew on, and he literally contradicted 2 different things. One, when we got the autopsy back from Japan, it said Dave died of acute enteritis. Basically, his intestines ruptured, filled up with blood, caused heart failure. Dr. Drew says, well, based on what I know and this and that, I'm sure it was substance abuse, this and that. Yeah, well, then he made the comment when Mike had the surgery, Mike went to the hospital twice. The first time they took him to the hospital, they treated him for septic shock. Antibiotics. Well, that kind of backfired. That wasn't what he needed. And they transferred him to Baylor, brought in Bill Sutker. Bill Sutker took over the case, who at that time was like the number one disease specialist in the country. Infectious disease. And Bill figured out it was toxic shock syndrome. Well, Dr. Drew said, I don't think it was toxic shock syndrome. He wasn't there. It really made me mad that someone that wasn't even there, I'm going to diagnose him 20 years later.
Yeah.
Okay? We had the best doctors in the country, especially with Mike's.
Yeah.
And, but for most of it, it's great because it's talking to Brian, it's talking to me, it's talking to the people that really lived it.
Yep. All of my friends that we grew up with that knew Carrie too, Carrie's first member Tina, Carrie's girlfriend from 15 and 19 years old. Everybody like that, that's probably 10 of my friends from high school and all that. They said, man, that was great. Everybody said that was so real and so honest. I got honest from every single person that all my friends said, man, that was the way it was, and it was honest, and I appreciate that. So that was the people that knew really liked it. So that tells me right there that it was right on cue, right on the money.
Okay.
I wish they would do a 2-hour special on the good things that happened.
Yeah.
Because there was I know this show was 2 hours of the sad that happened. We could make 50 hours of all of the good and what we did good for different organizations, different nonprofits, Make-A-Wish. Things that just, we couldn't have done without what Fritz von Erich had created with World Class Championship Wrestling.
And to a degree, in my personal opinion, wrestling wouldn't be as big as it is today without World Class, because you see the biggest stars
100%
all came from World Class. It wouldn't. I don't think it would have been as big.
We were trendsetters in the way our television, just the way we did our television and went into that. I'll never forget it, and I said it on the Hollywood Demons. Fritz had a study at their home, and he brought me and Carrie in there one day. I'll never forget. It was 1982. I was getting ready to graduate college, and he said, "We're about to embark on something that's huge. It's called syndication, and our tape is going to go all over the country and all over the world." He said it's called cable TV, and we were like, "Oh, cool." We didn't really know what it was, but he had the forethought then of doing that, and he was the first one to do it. So that in itself, we were trendsetters and set the bar, so to speak, for everybody, and everybody followed suit.
Yeah.
If there was one change that I think could have made us even bigger, I said it then and I'll say it now, we should have pay-per-viewed Texas Stadium.
Yep.
Yeah.
We had 42,000 people here, but there was hundreds of thousands around the world that would have watched.
Yeah.
And they would have paid. Back then it was $20-$25 for pay-per-view.
Really? Even back then?
And back then it would have been the biggest.
Yep.
It would have been, well, hats off to Vince, because literally months later he did the first pay-per-view with WrestleMania.
Damn you, Vince.
He saw what was going on.
Yeah.
So
He saw, and everybody else, you follow.
Yeah.
It's working. Yeah. Flair would come here, and I'd have to recuperate for 2 weeks after Flair was here. But traveling with Flair, he would say, "Man, y'all got the best production I've ever seen in my life." And he was trying to get me. He knows. Flair tried to get me to go work for Crockett,
North Carolina,
for years. He kept saying, "You got to come work. You got to come up here and work for us." And I talked to Jimmy. He's going to let you have all the memorabilia. He'll let you have this if you'll come up here. And I just, who knew we were going to have 4 dead Von Erichs?
and they had their own TV truck called Nemo, North America Electronics Mobile operation. They called it Nemo. They had their own tractor trailer with all the stuff in it that 39 had.
Well, they brought Keith Mitchell. Keith Mitchell was our producer director
39.
at Channel 39. Crockett was the first to hire Keith from here, and then he hopped around up to New York for a while. Then he was down with Jarrett and them and retired there after all these years. And
Well, he's the one that come up. I don't know it might have been your idea with Kerry on the horse deal, and then David and Jimmy Garvin with Precious out there, farmhand for a day. Whose idea was that?
Well, the having Jimmy and Sunshine have to clean up all the horse crap and wash the dog, that was we created that in the booking meeting. Yeah. But we had not seen Kerry was going to wrestle Flair for the tape, and Keith. I used to meet with Keith Mitchell and Gil Gillum every Thursday to go over the show, and we would go over the highlights, and we would talk about the little vignettes we were going to shoot, and. We were at Channel 39 doing interviews, and Fritz happened to be there that day, and they said, "Hey, we want you to see something." And they took us into the studio there where they could bring it up, and they played that vignette they had done with Kerry. We didn't come up with it. We didn't see it. They said, "What do you think of this promo?" And holy cow, it was so good. It just gave you chills of watching Kerry work out. It would show Kerry working out and lifting all these weights and riding the horse with just shorts on and looked like Conan the Bowberry. And then it would show Flair drinking champagne, riding in a limousine.
Yeah. Hey, that was one of the best, and nobody had ever done anything like that. And they, once again, the trendsetters, and what a perfect thing. Kerry's training to get ready, and Flair's, got the girls and champagne. Yeah. What a perfect scenario.
Perfect scenario, and we did an interview in that studio. We put a temporary wall up, and we had Fritz on one side of it and Flair on the other side, and we literally did as if there wasn't Zoom back then, but it was like on camera. We had a camera supposedly in North Carolina where Flair was at, and then here where Fritz was at, and they're going back and forth, and holy cow, people were like that. They all believed that. They didn't realize we were in the same building, same room.
Yeah. That's awesome. So I'm glad y'all mentioned that, because a lot of people always wanted to give Crockett the credit, for syndication and getting with Ted Turner and that situation. But that's really cool that y'all can acknowledge that. And speaking of acknowledging, I want to take a moment. Let's talk about Bill Mercer. He recently passed away.
99 years old.
Let's talk about some of y'all favorite memories of Bill Mercer real quick.
Man, they're just, I could say 1,000 of them, man. He was just, his voice and his knowledge of that side, being an announcer. I mean, he was
a teacher.
He taught at the North Texas State University, which is University of North Texas now. But he was the best I'd ever seen at, doing his intro for you and then leading you into it. He was just, you felt like you were around somebody that was way up here, right?
Yeah, and the thing was, Bill originally was the voice of the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And so when he kind of blended in the original, when we first started using Bill, it was we were doing the tapings at the Sportatorium, and it was really just two cameras, and Fritz would do the interviews with him, and my biggest probably memory of Bill Mercer, I wasn't even in the business yet. I was a fan.
Yeah.
And Fritz was the bad guy, and I'll never forget, Fritz and Duke Kilmuka had an angle going, and Duke Kilmuka was doing an interview with Bill Mercer, and Fritz came out from the back and attacked him and started beating him, and Kilmuka used to use this karate chop with the straight fingers to the throat, turned around and hit Fritz, and Fritz went down, and the cigar went one way, and it was so believable. And then Fritz wore this neck brace thing for a week before they did the death match.
The hottest. People still talk about Duke Kilmuka.
Fritz and Duke Kilmuka. Same thing with Joe Blanchard.
Yeah.
I know you did Tully's daughter.
Yeah.
I remember one of the biggest angles before I got into business. I was at Will Rogers Coliseum when all of a sudden some guy jumps out of the fans and runs into the ring and starts beating the hell out of Fritz. And I'm thinking, who in the hell is this? It was Joe Blanchard. And so I didn't realize it was an angle. Nobody else did. And then he started telling the story. Yeah, he put the claw on me back in so-and-so day, and I had 50-something stitches, and it's payback time. And it was a great angle. But yeah, Bill Mercer, he was just such a good guy.
Oh man!
And the funny thing,
Genuine.
we used to laugh at Bill sometime because Mark Lawrence actually knew the holds, like okay, it's a sunset flip, it's this or that. Bill would just make up some name. He would be talking about it, and he'd be like, oh, he just did the
Okey doke.
and everybody would be like, what's that?
But it sounded perfect.
Yeah, he just go with it.
Yeah. What a nice man. Golly.
We saw him at the premiere when I went to the Iron Claw premiere. Bill was there, and what was crazy was, so he was 98 then, 98, 97. His memory was just good. I mean, I only got to talk to him for about 2 minutes, but I was really impressed. He was in a wheelchair, but man, he hadn't lost any of his memory.
Wow.
Man, that's awesome. I got a picture we're going to put up on the screen. It's out there on the TV of you being interviewed by Bill Mercer, so we're going to put that up so people can show up.
I've got pictures of me and Kerry with Bill Mercer standing there, me and Iceman, and a bunch of different interviews when he was there. Man, I just cherish those things now. You know.
Well, you know,
those
but
pictures.
I bet you between the two of us, we've been interviewed by Bill Mercer 1,000 times.
Oh man, a bunch.
You know,
And you know, we were the first ones to start doing. Right before the match would start, like I saw me and Kevin, and me and Kerry, Bill Mercer would be standing outside the ring, right down on the floor, and do an interview with me and Kerry or me and Kevin, and then they'd say, all right, when we were done, say, all right, let's go to the ring for the match, and people weren't doing that either.
Mm-mm.
You know, they had you over here on a set. On a set doing the interviews.
And when you talk about WCW, when Turner bought it, I honestly, who can say with how big it got? I thought it was a mistake. This is my thinking, that Vince bought Turner out because that kind of kept the business. There was two major powerhouses.
Yeah.
And I would have rather them done some gimmicks where they just did some crossover matches instead of merging all of it into one where it became a monopoly. You know, and believe it or not, we could have done that first. Vince, they flew here, Vince Sr. and Vince Jr., they flew here in end of 84. They wanted to do a merger because between their cable and ours, we could have covered all over. And Fritz did not do it for two reasons. One, our ratings were higher than theirs. And they offered us a bigger percentage than they were going to get.
Yeah, and that was their offer.
That was their offer. And the thing was, Fritz didn't want to, I mean, all these guys that had been loyal all over the country, all of a sudden were going to be out of a job.
Yeah.
Because their theory was you don't keep the Bob Geigels and all these local promoters. Sorry. And Fritz was just like, I'm not doing that. And then they went back. Months later, Vince Sr. died, and Vince Jr. didn't have loyalty to
anymore.
And you know what? When you're looking at what he created, how can he sit back and wait? Somebody was going to do it. Somebody was going to do it. And we were in a position with Von Erich's falling like flies that we couldn't do it.
We
could no longer do it.
See, I always heard there was rumors at one point that people wanted to take Vince Jr. out at one point because he was messing with a lot of pockets.
Well,
taking a lot of big stars out of that territory.
They were mad because he was breaking kayfabe a lot, you know, and all that. But if you look, he was a genius at what he created.
Yeah, the original guy that broke kayfabe was Eddie Mansfield.
Yeah.
Eddie Mansfield.
Boy, that was...
I thought he was going to get taken out because kayfabe was a strong thing. I've seen guys get beat up in their dressing room over it.
Bad.
And Eddie Mansfield went on, I don't remember if it was 2020 or one of them, and literally took a blade out, showed how we get color.
And you know what was great about that? He didn't even hardly bleed.
No, I know.
He had one little trickle of blood because if you're just standing here and you're not hot, he did it and it didn't even hardly do
your blood's not pumping.
So, well, man, everybody wanted to kill him. I'm surprised somebody didn't get him.
What's his name? Schultz? I can't even his name.
Dr. Death.
Dr. Death.
David
How
Schultz.
he kept kayfabe. Oh, you think it's fake?
Yeah,
smacked
John Stossel. Slapped John Stossel. Busted his eardrum.
Slapped him into the next zip code.
That's another one. Then they said also overseas, Vader went over there, and some Indian guy was saying it's fake. It's like, you think this fake? He got up And he ended up having to miss a match because they arrested him for.
Well, they did that as a joke when John Stossel was there going around asking people at the WWF, is it fake? And a couple of the boys go ask that guy right over there, because they knew
David Schultz
what he was going to do, and they set him up, slapped him off his feet, and then slapped him again when he got up.
So you talked about how the industry's changed amazingly, now since then, and you being a booker, you would go tell a wrestler, you're going to do this, this, and this. Was there ever any pushback back then? Like, nah, I'm not liking this idea. I'm not going to do this.
Yeah, the pushback really became, the pushback started coming when our cable got so strong. Because what used to happen was, let's say Brian's working for me and he's on top. Okay, his run comes to an end. In business-wise, he would put over some other guys to get them in a position because no one saw it outside of here.
Exactly.
And then he would go to another town and crank right back up.
Yeah.
The problem is our tape got so strong that people were seeing it in Chicago. They were seeing it. So wrestlers were like, oh, no, I'm not doing a job. And the worst, there were certain guys that understood business. I give you a great example, the Ultimate Warrior. He really believed his gimmick. Yeah. He said, people aren't going to believe if he beats me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, another one was Jeep Swenson. I'm in Israel, and I had a match. It was Brody against Abdullah, Jeep Swenson against Lance Von Erich. No TV.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to see
TV,
it.
No nothing.
And so I'm lining up the finishes, and I'm going over what I want done, and I go over there, and Jeep Swenson says, oh, no, I don't want him to pin me. And he said, we'll do a disqualification. I said, I'm doing a disqualification in the Brody-Abdullah match.
Yeah, I can't, yeah.
And I went back over to the dressing room, and I told Brody, we're going to have to change the finish. He said, why? He said, it sounded good to me. And I said, well, Jeep doesn't want to do the job. And Brody was like, what? Got up, put his big boots on, and I'm like, uh-oh. Went across the other side.
Walked straight across.
Jeep Simpson was a big man. 94-inch chest, 29-inch arms.
He was huge.
He walked straight over there and looked at Jeep and said, here's what's going to happen. You're going to be in the ring with Lance Von Erich. He's going to put those big-ass shoulders of yours down, and the referee's going to count 1, 2, 3. Match is over. Otherwise, they're switching the matches, and it's me and you. Then I guarantee your big-ass shoulders are going on the mat. And Jeep was like, whatever they want to do.
Because he'd already got a taste of Brody.
Yeah,
I saw Brody bend a metal chair on that dude's back. I'm talking about not the little one with plastic seats, the metal seat.
Yeah.
That thing was like this. It made me cringe in the back when it hit him.
All right, let's do some quick rapid fire questions. We're going to wrap this up, okay? So here's one of my favorite questions I like to ask. So if I'm Ray and I'm the movie producer and I want to remake this Iron Claw movie, all right? And I want to really add some more detail to it. And I want to have people portray y'all. Which actors do you think should play y'all in the movie?
Ooh. Oh, wow. Do we have to be honest?
Who do you think could get the job done playing y'all?
That's hard to say. Well, I'm just going to say, I'm going to go big. I'm going to say Brad Cooper would play me.
Bradley Cooper?
Because he's about the same size. He could bulk up a little bit for Sniper.
Yeah.
Remember how he bulked up for that? And not that I think I need Brad Cooper to play, but, if you're going to ask me, that's what I'm going to say.
Okay.
I can't even think of anybody that... We're kind of talking back in the prime days, right?
Sure. Yeah.
It's hard to say, isn't it?
It is really hard to say, because especially if you go for the look. With my size and everything, I'd probably say somebody the size of Cruise.
Tom Cruise?
Because, somebody that size.
That'd be great. I bet y'all are...
Almost got to be in his movie, the 4th of July.
No.
It was crazy. I graduated my senior year, and they started producing the very next year after I graduated. They started looking, if you remember how the 4th of July opens up, he's having a match. Now, the only thing is I'd had to let him pin me, and in real life that wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
But they open up with him having a high school match, and he pins the other guy, and they picked a kid from Irving they picked a kid from here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area to be in that movie, and I was his weight, so I would have probably had a shot at being that, because at that time I was the big name in amateur wrestling.
Okay.
David was undefeated.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I'm not totally undefeated. I lost, but I went from the time I was 5th grade to sophomore without losing a match.
Okay. That's a lot of time to go there.
So, but you only
One
lost like
state
one
as
or
an 8th
two,
grader,
right?
which cannot be done anymore.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was. That'd
They
be
even have
good.
8th grade
And-
wrestling anymore?
No, they have 8th grade wrestling, but the problem then was the UIL was not in charge of the sport like every
Gotcha.
other sport.
Yeah.
And so there was no rule that an 8th grader couldn't challenge to go for the high school. And I did, and I beat the kid. So I went and represented MacArthur High School as an 8th grader, and I won it. And you can't do that anymore because now you're allowed 4 years UIL.
Okay.
David was the first person from Texas to get a wrestling scholarship. He got at the University of Arizona. So,
Yeah.
sure
Okay,
was.
David. All right.
He's a shooter, man.
All right, guys. What are both of y'all's favorite matches?
I'd have to say mine was when Kerry came back from his motorcycle wreck at Reunion. I guess that's the one that I kind of looked around in the Reunion Arena.
Favorite
looked
match he
around.
was in, or favorite?
Both. The one he was in.
My favorite match I was in, that was it, because I kind of looked around and said, well, I guess I made it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A main event at Reunion Arena with Kerry coming back for the first time. So that's kind of one that I remember. And I wrestled Flair and Dory Funk Jr., Ultimate Warrior here. I mean, I wrestled him every night, just about.
Yep.
And I've wrestled all the big names, Rick Rude, everybody. But I guess the one thing for me was with Kerry coming back at the main event at Reunion. So
Mine would be Star Wars, Reunion Arena, biggest crowd in history at Reunion Arena, and we flipped the Freebirds Hill. They slammed the gate on. Michael Hayes was special referee with me, with Kerry against Flair for the title. And at the end, the Freebirds turned, slammed the gate on Kerry's head, which looked like it killed him.
It killed him, man.
And that started the biggest rivalry and feud in wrestling history. You heard the guy on this show. There's a guy on there that's a current wrestler, and he said the biggest feud ever in our business was the Von Erichs and the Freebirds.
Yeah.
How long did that feud run, though?
We ran it for about almost 2 years.
Well,
A normal run 6 months.
Yeah.
But you got to remember, there was 3 Von Erichs and 3 Freebirds, so we could mix it.
It was perfect.
And we had, I tell people, it wasn't just that. All of a sudden, underneath cards, we got Jimmy Garvin, we got Brian Adias, we got
Chris Adams.
Bruiser Brody, we got Gino Hernandez, we got Chris. I mean, it was crazy the talent we had. Iceman King Parsons. I mean, the list just.
Eventers that were in the.
These guys could have all been superstar main eventers anywhere else.
Yeah.
Instead, they're taking this ride we're having. Because every facility, whether it be a high school stadium or a Reunion Arena, it's sold out for 2 years.
Another thing that you can't forget was David refereed Flair and Kerry at Texas Stadium.
Yeah,
So that
I
was
got the picture out there on the TV.
Yeah,
That was
that
a
might
big
be
match.
because we didn't know who was going to get the referee. That was Fritz's decision.
Yeah.
Because I wanted it so bad. Because you're going to go down in history. That goes in the history
Yeah,
books.
yeah.
History.
And it only made sense because I'm not saying this bragging on me. It made all the difference in the world if I refereed instead of Bronco. Because just moving around the ring, the wrestlers
Your
liked it
ability
because I could
to
do the
move.
dive over them. I could
Yeah.
I could take bumps no one else could take,
Yeah.
or some wouldn't take.
Well, Bronco couldn't. He's 65 or 70 years old. He couldn't. So it only made sense for David to do it. And that, to me, is probably one of the biggest matches ever, you know. So,
So
the people, it popped so loud,
Oh.
it was deafening. So, and
And that's Texas Stadium, right?
yeah.
Texas at
There's
42,000 people.
42,000
That was
people.
at that time. That was the largest crowd to ever see a wrestling event.
I hate seeing that a lot of those legendary landmarks are no more. Like Reunion Arena's gone, Texas Stadium's gone, of course the Sportatorium's gone. It's just like, dang, you hate to see those. I wish they could have preserved the Sportatorium and turned it into like a museum.
Well, they should have, because you go down there now. We do in the movie The Real Iron Claw. They took us there, and shot a whole lot of footage, but they didn't show it because it's just a field,
just a blank
high grass.
Yeah,
it's sad because there's nothing there.
Yeah, I'm like, see,
it's not like you tore it down to put another building up.
Yeah, you just tore it down, just basically to tear it down.
And believe it or not, I've had people come here. There's two things they wanted to see. One was where they filmed Dallas. The other one was
Sportatorium.
Can we see the Sportatorium?
Yeah.
Old tin building, but man, what a iconic. Everybody that wrestled there, all those big names, they would say, "What's your favorite place out of the WWE wrestling? Madison Square Garden and all those." They would say, "I like the Sportatorium in Dallas better than any place."
And you know what? That would be a heck of a documentary called the Sportatorium.
Yeah,
and just talk about matches.
Oh.
Not just matches. You got to remember the Big D Jamboree was originally held there. Willie Nelson has made more appearances there than anywhere in history.
Yep.
At the Sportatorium, they just take the ropes down on the ring. It was the stage. But I saw Ed Watt, who was the promoter. He took all the ticket sales and stuff.
Yeah.
Ed had a contract signed. Elvis Aaron Presley for the Big D Jamboree, $35.
Wow.
What would that be worth on
Oh,
eBay?
man.
Boy. Millions upon millions. Man, that's
crazy.
Man.
$35.
Okay, so we talked about, how y'all almost did the merger with WWE. What do you think about when a lot of the bigger, companies buy these other companies? For instance, the other day it was announced WWE bought AAA, the legendary, Lucha Libre promotion, and they're buying a lot of things, and they're doing a lot of cross promotion. Now, Vince Jr. was still involved. I don't think none of that would have been happening. So, what are your thoughts on that when these bigger companies are trying to come take over the smaller companies?
I have to be honest. I don't watch it anymore. For one,
I haven't watched it in forever either.
For one, the wrestling's not the same. I told Ross and Marshall, don't do some of these bumps they're doing.
Yeah.
The one thing I can say about the days we were in the ring, your main job was to take care of the other person. Okay? You both got to work the next night. That's how you make your living.
Yeah.
And when I see some of the bumps, some of the stupid things guys are doing nowadays, it's just a matter of time that we're going to hear about
broken necks,
paralyzed, stuff like that.
They don't take care of the person they're with at all.
They're just worried about getting themselves over.
Yeah.
And if I can throw you off a 20-foot scaffold onto the concrete floor, I need to do it. And that's not the way the business works. And the bookers in today's world, matter of fact, most of them for the big organizations work for either All My Children or
they're writers.
Soap opera. They're writers.
I don't like that.
The bookers in today's world, especially the smaller venues, they literally wrestle from week to week.
Yeah.
Because they don't have TV.
Yeah.
And it's hard to build an audience without TV, without promotion. It'd be hard to do this podcast without these microphones.
Yeah, right. right. So, we got Extreme Travel, right? So, some of the guys you could take, and we do this on the road. Y'all do the interviews in different city from city. Who you taking with you to go to these interviews?
Well, see, it's a different world when you're doing interviews. If you're going to take the best interviewers, I got to take Ric Flair. I got to take, I'd have to bring Hogan in. He's good on the mic. Randy Savage is great on the mic.
Well, not interviews. I'm talking about far as the guys from WCCW that are still around here. If y'all did a tour from city to city, like you did, Talk with Kevin. If you could take some guys and y'all do this from city to city traveling, just talking about world class and different things, have different, like nights out with Kevin. Who all would y'all want to go with y'all?
If it's me, I would want Flair. God, so many of them are dead.
Yeah, there's so many of this.
If I could say some of the dead, it'd make it a whole new deal. If I got to pick from what's alive, you got to remember, at my age, I'll be 72 next year.
No way.
Yes, sir. I'll be 72. Like I say, I'm not old because I'm still working. But, gosh, people talk about the Von Erich curse. There was not a Von Erich curse. I've had people tell me there was a world-class curse because I can make a list as long as my arm of people that are dead before they were 60 years old that wrestled in the ring here.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And
WWE too. There's so
yeah.
many. They went through there and same thing. A bunch of those same people were dead.
And truthfully, I couldn't name, if you want to know the truth. Now, still alive, probably Arn Anderson, phenomenal guy. Luger, you know.
Just win the Hall of Fame.
I had a hell of a time one time with Luger over here at the $1 Million Saloon. But most of the guys that I would really want around me are dead.
Yeah.
Harley Race, guys that lived it and were worldwide names. You know, unless you're wrestling right now for WWE or AEW, you're not a worldwide name.
Yeah.
No. It's just so different. Like he said, I haven't watched it. Everybody always asks me. I couldn't tell you what's.
Yeah.
I watched a couple of the WrestleMania matches, and it's nothing but a big production now. It's not anything about the matches, you know.
Yeah.
No, it's production.
It's just all about it's like a General Hospital soap opera.
This will tell you how big World Class was. I was at a luncheon yesterday and I told a story. Tom Landry goes to Israel with his wife. It was just a vacation. He told us he went into a diamond store to look at diamonds, and he's looking at them, and the guy behind the counter recognized him. Said, "Oh my God, you're the coach." And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "You're from Dallas. You must know the Von Erichs."
I wonder what he said.
He said, "I know of them."
Yeah.
He said, "I definitely know of them."
Yeah. Those guys, man, I tell everybody, and not being blasphemous, but they walked on the water around here, man.
Yeah.
They got where they couldn't go anywhere and like to go out and eat or something. They get mobbed. They went to Six Flags one time.
Yeah, closed it.
Shut the park down.
Shut the park down.
Shut Six Flags down.
Word got out they were there.
Got out of control. So everybody heard they were there, and all these people went converging. They had to get them like in a van or something, some type of ice cream van or something. Got them out of there. But it was wrestling from the early '80s to about '88. Here was phenomenal. It was like living in a dream, you know.
Yeah.
It was just so big. It was crazy.
Well, that's awesome, guys. Well, thank y'all for taking your time out to come be with us today.
Absolutely, man. I enjoyed
This
it.
is really amazing hearing all these stories. Before we go, I want you to tell the people where they can, go check out this new film and where they can check you out if y'all are on social media.
Well, you can the latest movie that's out, or the show, is it's an episode of Hollywood Demons. Why they come up with that name, I don't know, but it's an episode. I think it's episode 5. It's called the Real Iron Claw, and they did that because of the movie The Iron Claw was so off track. But it's called The Real Iron Claw. I think you check it out, you're going to love it. And as far as myself, best way is my Facebook's pretty easy. It's David E. Manning is my Facebook, and I don't do a whole lot of social media. Probably don't do as much as I should, but if you ever want a nice trip, nice vacation, extreme travel, and you can, as Ray said, you can call up Lit Travel. That's my stepson runs that, and he does a great job at fixing up good vacations.
Oh, trust me, I know. Boy, I got some stories.
Same here. I'm just the real Brian Adias on Facebook and stuff. I don't do a lot of. My wife maintains that. I don't do all the X stuff. I guess I'm a dinosaur.
I'm a dinosaur.
To it, but with David, the extreme travel, man, they have some deals all over the world. That's the packages are just unbelievable. How economical they are. I couldn't believe it when I started looking at the. You can go all over the world for just a nominal amount of money.
Fun stuff. Brian and I hunt together. I got some land down on Big Cypress River.
I can hear about that.
We hunt and reminisce.
Oh man, what is fun around the campfire. We got a campfire there, and we tell stories and man, just laugh. And some of the best times I've ever had was sitting by the campfire at the deer lease. Man, it's just not a care in the world, So, but that place is getting. They've done a great job down there clearing it all out, cutting the wood, and then man, it looks like when it's all done, that place is going to be where if you could buy a lot by the river and build you a vacation home would be.
You could build a cabin all the way to a mansion. It's just gorgeous.
That's awesome. That's Austin always tells me he always goes down there. We're going down to the property. I'm like, all right.
You got to come down.
Yeah, soon. All right. Well, again, thank y'all so much.
You bet. Thank
you. Y'all got a lot of stuff probably you got to get to, but make sure y'all tune in, like, subscribe. Check these guys out. Go follow and watch the new movie here, The Real Iron Claw. And this is Ray. We'll catch you next time. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, get money all day, get money all night. Sip my drink, ho, let's get right. Getting paid.